That was good, y'all. Fuzion here, back with another reaction video. Not gonna waste much time. I'm gonna be reacting to some first take. Ant-Man has some stuff to say. I was supposed to drop a video yesterday. For some reason, it got corrupted. Whatever. Let's go ahead and get started.
In his recent interview with the Wall Street Journal, Anthony Edwards was asked how his generation compares to the ones before him and said, quote, "I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody."
How you gonna say you didn't watch it back then, so you can't speak on it, but then speak on it right away? That don't make no sense. And I'm pretty sure anyone, well, now I don't know, but I feel like most people who is trying to go out for the NBA has done some sort of research. I think it's important to go back and watch. Not everybody. I think there are a few names in the 80s, 70s that I feel like you need to watch. Like Magic, Dr. J, Larry Bird, and I'm missing like 8 other names. In the 90s, early 90s all the way, he should have been on top of that. He should have been watching Michael Jordan. He should have been watching Clyde Drexler. He should have been watching John Stockton, Sean Kemp, the 13-year-old Slayer. Who else? I think the 90s is when he should have been paying attention like the most. I think because he defensively, I think that there weren't a lot of rules back then, so you were able to hand check and all that type of stuff. Foul, that is the quote unquote hard defense that was there back then. I think he could learn from that, as far as not taking that inside, like as far as being that hard-nosed Draymond Green type of fouling defense. He could see what the defensive mindset was back then, and he can add that to his game as far as that edge, all that type of stuff. Gameplay from Michael Jordan, seeing how he moves his feet. Scottie Pippen, seeing him on the defensive end. There's stuff that you can learn from looking back. And I don't know if I said this in a recent video or it was the video yesterday that got corrupted, but this just proves my point even more between the NBA and hip-hop, how artists and the basketball players sort of think alike. The newer rap generation and the newer NBA generation, there's no reason to go back. It's so far gone now that it would be hard for them to go back and listen to everything. Special Ed, KRS-One, and just those names where they may not be known or out there, but I feel like if you are going into hip hop and trying to be a great artist and not just trying to be the hit guy or whatever, it makes sense just to go back and listen and see. Oh, this flow is interesting. Oh, this rhyme pattern, this rhyme scheme. You can learn that. You can use it. You can see how it sounds and then add your own flair to it. I think there's a way for you to learn from the previous generation. And I think that goes here as well.
Has skill. Stephen A. Smith.
And that's not even true about the skill part. That's crazy.
Of course they're out of bounds. Forgive the young buck for what he does not know. He openly admits his youth comes into play and he's barely seen the older competition from back in the day. So he just doesn't know. Evidently, you know, he talked about Michael Jordan. He didn't see Charles Barkley play. He didn't see Larry Bird play. He didn't see Isaiah Thomas, one of the most skilled point guards this game has ever seen, a person that Michael Jordan has called the second greatest point guard in the history of basketball, behind one Irvin Magic Johnson himself, who Ant Edwards did not mention. So you take those things into consideration. Don't get me started with Larry Bird. I already threw that up in there. I can go back, and when you look at shooters, for example, as great as Steph Curry is, because he's the greatest of all time, wipe Steph Curry out of the mix. Then bring in some of the great shooters in NBA history, the Ray Allens of the world, the Reggie Millers of the world, the Allen Houstons of the world. I can go back to the days of Dale Ellis, Ricky Pierce, and guys like that. I remember downtown Freddie Brown, for crying out loud. There's some people to point to. I remember Andrew Toney at the off-guard spot, Mr. Mid-Range. We think about DeMar DeRozan. Go back and watch some highlights of Andrew Toney as a Philadelphia 76er. Why don't you look up Mark Aguirre and what he used to do on the basketball court, and Adrian.
Yeah, there's all these names back then. Bernard King, that's one that I'm always thinking of, almost revolutionizing the small forward, power forward, mid-range position. That short 10-foot, 9-foot, 12-foot jump shot, and how that became a staple, how it is somewhat important in this game nowadays. The pull-up jump shot. The three is probably one of the most important shots in the NBA right now. I think nowadays teams are starting to figure out how to defend that. Guards are getting taller and longer. Point guards are getting taller and longer. So because of that, it makes it a little bit easier to defend that three if you have the wingspan, the height, the athleticism to play defense on the shot. So a lot of pull-up jump shots. KD, you got fadeaways from the low post, mid post, high post, from LeBron, Jokic, even Ant. He got a little bit of a pull-up mid-range jump shot. That is also one of the most important shots in the NBA. I think it's not really talked about a lot because, of course, a three is worth more than two, and a layup is easier. Maybe a floater is a little bit easier, but the conception of the hate a mid-range shot gets for some reason is sort of wild to me. I mean, I understand, just step back a little bit, take the three. If you do take it deep too, okay. And if you're down low, I understand going for the layup. But half-court offenses nowadays, you need to have a player who can pull up, hit a mid-range jump shot, hit an elbow jump shot, hit a third or fourth hash mark extended shot on that wing, especially if you are a power forward or even a center. Like, there are times where your guard drives to the basket, easy dump off for the midi, easy dump off for the one dribble pull up midi. That's important in today's game. I think a three-point shot is important. Probably one of the most important shots in the NBA right now. I think a mid-range jump shot is, or if not, pretty close to that. And that is because of Bernard King. Not just because, but you saw what happens when you can hit that 10-foot shot. It's always there. I feel like that shot is always there. And if you can find a way to develop it, DeMar DeRozan, Sean Livingston, Kobe, who else has a solid mid-range shot? LaMarcus Aldridge, and I'm missing like two or three other names that are great at shooting that mid-range shot. Melo. So the shot is important. You go back, you realize who was one of the first people to really use that shot effectively. I think it's Bernard King, and then it obviously goes down to Mike, Kobe, KD. Russ at one point was great at that pull-up mid-range jump shot from the elbow. So I think when you go back, you see a lot of where stuff came from, and you see more of how to like develop new moves or different moves or moves that aren't being used anymore. So I do think it's important to go back, and I think he's wrong. I don't understand I don't think anybody had skill back then argument. I feel like a lot of that is Twitter, TikTok arguments, and it sort of makes the older generation players look worse than they were. I think a lot of players can dribble, shoot nowadays, but back then I felt like it was everybody knew how to defend, or how to defend efficiently and effectively to a certain extent. I think that was the switch. People are focusing more so on offense and developing an offensive game. Of course, you're going to have some players that can play both sides of the ball effectively to a certain extent. But I think Victor Wembanyama and maybe two other rookies over the past 2 or 3 years you are seeing have been able to play great defense right away. Because you work on that offensive end, yes, that is a skill. Defense is a skill as well. And I think that is always my argument when it comes to the different generations. Of course, that there was more fouling, hand checking, rules are different, but you got to also have the skill to be able to use that defense and be able to counter that defense. So I think I'm going to disagree as well.
And Dantley and others. There's so many names that you can point to. Certainly the game has evolved, and in terms of parity, there's more talent in the NBA today that once existed, but that's entirely different than saying, well, Michael Jordan was the only skilled players. Let's go to the center position. Nikola Jokic is sensational. He is something special. Make no mistake about it. Joel Embiid cannot be ignored. I get all of that. You ever heard of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
And Kareem.
You ever heard of Wilt Chamberlain? You ever heard of these guys? You understand what I'm saying? Shaquille O'Neal, excuse me. He came after them, but still, he wasn't in the Ant-Man era. You look into the most dominant force I've seen in my lifetime. There's so many things to think about and look at. And so you can look and appreciate today's players, understand that there's an elevated level of talent because they piggyback off the talent that preceded them, the pioneers that came before them. But that's not to sit up there and summarily dismiss the older generation and what they brought to the table and how innovative and tremendously talented as they were. And oh, by the way, let me not forget, even before Kobe Bryant, there was a guy by the name of Vince Carter, the best in-game dunker in the history of basketball. And you know that Ed Edwards is one of my top 2 favorite players in the NBA. Him and
he missed the mark. He missed the mark on this. It just is what it is. Dr. J has no skill. Iceman Gervin has no skill. I think it's hard to say that and mean it. I'm sure he's going to get some words. I'm sure he should get some words. And I don't know if anybody on Minnesota is going to say anything to him. But I feel like an OG does have to reach out to him. I think it has to be Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant and him have a interesting relationship. They seem really cool. It seems like KD took him under his wing, or they just happen to just be hanging out or whatever. But I think him, or even Steph, should pull him aside and be like, look, bro, you can't say that. Not only is it not true, but you got to understand this, this, and this, and this. I think that should have been a conversation. And I think he might get it. So, again, I agree with Stephen A on this one. I think I understand what Ant was saying as far as maybe not being as skilled as the current NBA, but you can't say that nobody had skill back in the day. You just can't. But that's all I got for you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit that link in the description down below to become a member. I'm starting a new shorts and TikTok series. It should be uploaded around 7 or 8 today. So make sure that you do check that out. I will be using the poll that I will be creating on those for more videos down the line that will be coming. Whatever. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.